This is The Focus Group with business insiders Tim Bennett and John Nash.
I fought worse monsters than you for years in Hollywood. I know how to win the hard way.
We're all business, except when we're not.
Don't f with me, fellas! This ain't my first time at the rodeo.
That's on the site.
Welcome to The Focus Group. I'm John Nash, and as always, I'm joined by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Tim Bennett. Our moniker, our tagline is we're all business except we're not. And we also have a second one called Listen, Laugh, and Learn. And you can find all the information you need about us at focusgroupradio.com. But we're going to stick on the business side first because we have a friend of the Focus Group. We're going to dice things up. Normally we do our show opener and we ease you into the program, but we're going right into the interview because we have a very, very good friend of the show, a wonderful woman, book author, former agency owner. Kelly's actually had a pretty amazing career, actually, I would say, right?
She has the perfect career right now.
Perfect.
Works for herself and makes bank.
We're talking about none other than Kelly McDonald, who yesterday, I believe it was the 15th? Monday was when the book dropped. She has a new book out called How to Work With and Lead People Not Like You, Practical Solutions for Today's Diverse Workplace. Kelly, are you with us?
I am.
There she is.
Oh, Kelly, you look fantastic. Now, first question, Tim wants to know if you could send a case of your new book down to the White House. Pennsylvania Avenue needs your help.
Oh my gosh. It's like never as important as it is right now, like right this second.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kelly, I know you were going to send us some books for us to show here, but we have graphics of them anyway, but they didn't arrive in time. So unfortunately our postal service or whatever it was did not get them to us in time. But you were on, and there's a picture of your new book.
Me.
Well, younger all of us. That was from our old Sirius XM days when you first came on. And
I look the same.
Do you?
Yeah.
Your hair's longer. But when you were on a few months ago, we talked about the book as it was coming out. And so this is the third in a series of books that you have about reaching diverse audiences or working with people that aren't like you. Of all the three you've done, was this one the most difficult?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, thank you for asking. The other ones I felt not only very qualified to write because one was a marketing book and then the other one was customer service. But in this day and age, and especially like as a white woman, I actually had a conversation with my editor where I'm like, how am I supposed to write about this? I mean, how am I supposed to write about how you work with someone of a different race or ethnicity? And he came to my rescue because he said, stick to your true north. And what your true north is business. And don't get bogged down in trying to say the politically correct thing or the least contentious thing, whatever. He said, just keep bringing it back to business. And once he said that, it was like the skies opened up and I knew how to write it because the moment of clarity that I had is I don't have to like you if we're coworkers. I don't have to like you. I don't have to have you over to my house for Thanksgiving dinner. I don't have to socialize with you. I just have to work with you. And once you think about that and you keep bringing it back to business, that's what this book is about, is how do people in this day and age right now, when everybody's walking on eggshells or afraid to say the wrong thing, how do they work with someone who's not like them?
Kelly, when you were researching the book, though, what were some of the examples of workplace conflicts or like things that weren't clicking correctly because the team was composed of people who, maybe didn't get along, didn't understand each other, but was that like a very prevalent theme?
Oh, very much so. And in fact, it's all about examples, as you know. You can talk about theory all day long, but what people remember and what sinks in is show me an example that illuminates what you're talking about. So I can think of two right off the bat. And one is racial or ethnic, and the other one has nothing to do with that. The first one is a colleague of mine who is a black attorney, and she's from Topeka, Kansas. And Topeka is not exactly the most black community is in Kansas, as you can imagine. And as you could also imagine, there's probably just not that many black women attorneys. She was doing a deposition in, I believe it's called Salina, Kansas, which is like an even smaller town out in the middle of nowhere. So she goes to the other attorney's office to do the deposition, and she walks in, and the woman who is the receptionist is, not to be generational, but as an older woman of a different generation, and the woman says, you can sit right over there and wait for your attorney.
Oh.
Wait for it. She thought she was the person who was being deposed. And so my friend Amber said, very respectfully, very nicely, she said, I am the attorney. And then the woman said, I didn't know that they let paralegals do depositions.
Oh, she dug the hole even deeper?
Exactly. She thought that the only way a black woman could be doing this deposition, or why that she'd even be there, is if she is a legal assistant of some kind. And so I said to Amber, oh my God, what did you do? I would have like exploded. I would have, and she said, and this is where it comes back to business. She said, you know what? I could have gotten all outraged and I could have like lectured her and all that. And she said, but she said, ultimately, that's not what I'm there for. She pulled out her business card and she very respectfully handed it to this woman. And she said, my name is Amber Fisher. I'm with blah, 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 and I'm the attorney for the, the defendant or whatever, and I'm just going to sit right over here and wait for them right over here. And she just brought it back to business. And of course, the woman was mortified. She immediately understood what she had done. But instead of going low, she went the high road, and she just kept it focused on business. She didn't give her an HR lecture. She just solved the problem by being professional and businessy, and she still got her point across. So that's like one example that I talked about, which is sometimes people are going to say the wrong thing. They just are. And I don't think in this particular receptionist case that it was trying to be malicious. I think she's just of a different era, and she's this older woman in this really small town in white Kansas, and she just didn't expect a black attorney to walk in.
It was probably the Trump law firm. So.
Tim, always the instigator, always the instigator. I'm trying to stay neutral here. The other example that I have is one of a company, a global company that was trying to do leapfrog technology, and they had a manufacturing plant in a small rural community in Minnesota, and then they had their brainiac engineers in Silicon Valley. And so they had all the talent that they needed to do this, develop this like leapfrog technology, but they knew that if they had the meeting in Minnesota, that it would seem like it was favoring the manufacturing guys. If they had the meeting in Silicon Valley, it would seem like they were favoring the engineering guys. So they literally had the meetings in a neutral place where they brought all these guys together, both engineering and manufacturing. So the people who are going to conceive it, but then also the people who have to make this stuff. And they brought them together and said, okay, here's what our job is. And these guys all screamed and said, oh, we can't do it, and there's not enough time, and all the things like that. But the COO essentially said, you have to do it. This is what we committed to doing. Work it out. And then he let them be. And what ultimately he said is, if he had tried to orchestrate how they were going to work together, it never would have happened. He said, but they worked it out themselves. And if I had set the timelines, and if I had said, here's how you guys are going to do it, and here's when I want progress reports, then it never would have worked. He said, but because I let them do it themselves, and they screamed and they squawked, and he said, but they got it done. And then ultimately, I think this was key too, is he said, you have to let them, what he learned is, these were guys that all want to show off how smart they are. So he said, I ended up having status meetings where I knew that they were going to do nothing but peacock, because they literally wanted to just show each other how smart they were. So they'd be like, here's what I've got, here's what I've developed. And consequently, they ended up creating this amazing new technology. But in that case, the difference between people not like you had nothing to do with racial and ethnic. It had to do with discipline. It had to do with engineering and manufacturing, two totally different things. And this guy was smart enough to figure out how to bring them together and work with a cohesive team. So the book is just full of examples of how to work with people. But the key premise is ultimately, you don't have to marry these people. You just have to work with them.
Kelly, you said something a bit ago about the example of the attorney in Oklahoma, and you said sometimes you're just going to say the wrong thing. And I'm fascinated by that because do you address because saying the wrong thing is one thing, hearing it and interpreting it and acting on it's another. So are you also teaching people how to kind of like take a second to process before response?
Bring it back to business. Yeah, because my thought is when someone says something like that in a business situation that is ignorant, kind of inartful, mildly insulting, hugely insulting, whatever, I believe, and whether this is optimistically or naively, I believe that people don't intend to be that way. They just say the wrong thing. And I feel like in business, that's the place to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. If I was having a beer with you and you said that, then I could say, John, come on. You know, that's not how I see it. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, we could talk it out and we could hash it out. But in business, it can take the conversation in a place that doesn't necessarily move the ball down the field. And if in business, all you're trying to do is move that ball down the field, move the business forward, build teams, solve problems, move the business forward, then stick to business, give somebody the benefit of the doubt. And like my friend Amber did, just bring it back to business and you can still make your point. I mean, she made her point beautifully when she said, I'm Amber Fisher and I'm with XYZ law firm out of Kansas City. And I'm the attorney and I'm going to sit right over there and wait for my client. I mean, boom.
Now get me a cup of coffee.
So we're speaking with Kelly McDonald, who is one of the top speakers in the country for business. You do a lot of trade associations, large corporations, and a lot of the keynotes that you give revolve around some of the work that you've done through your books, which is about working with people different than you, whether it's marketing or in this case, leadership, and then crafting customer service. And I'm wondering if you've found how many do you do a year about?
These days I'm trying to do what I call bigger, better, fewer. So I'm doing about 60.
Well, so which is a lot. So when
I used to do 100. So I'm trying to do, like I said, bigger, better, fewer, and just kind of like have a life.
So have you found, and I don't know if this is a fair question, but I'm going to ask it. Have you found that people are receptive to your message overall, or do you get the feeling, okay, they're checking a box? Because a lot of the corporations and a lot of people, and particularly with this environment we're in now with the current administration, I'm not so sure Donald Trump is that different than a lot of senior executives at some organizations and the bravado that he exhibits. So do you feel that your message gets well received, or do people sometimes feel like, I've got to sit through this and we're checking a box?
That's a great question. I actually feel it's very well received. And I think, Tim, to be completely candid, one of the reasons is because I don't use the word diversity. I use words like people not like you.
Right.
And one of the things that I do in my presentations is I say, my definition of diversity is any way you can be different from me. And I'll pull, a woman out of the audience and say, do you have kids? And she'll invariably say yes, because most women have kids. And I'll say, I don't. So
you're different.
We're both women. We're both white, we might be the same age, we might live in the same zip code and make the same household income, but if you have kids and I don't, we're different. Yesterday, I used the example of if somebody works part-time and I work full-time, we're different. I mean, if someone's a pet owner and I'm not a pet owner, we're going to be different. There's a million ways that we can be different. If someone's a gun owner and I'm not a gun owner, we're going to be different. If someone is in the military and I'm not, we're going to be different.
So that's a great distinction then. So because I think we all fall into the trap of using the word diversity, and this is the first I've heard you explain it this way, which I agree with.
I agree with. Yeah.
So do you think that's an either an old term or something we should get away from using diversity because it's a hot button?
It is. I feel like there's two things. I feel like diversity actually has a lot of baggage. I don't get very much traction with that word anymore. I think a lot of people label it as an HR word, and they think it's going to be an HR lecture. And if they're enlightened people, then they go, well, I get it. I don't really need the diversity lecture because I get it, So people dismiss it. They either dismiss it because they think it doesn't apply to them, or they dismiss it because they think it's going to be an HR lecture and it's got baggage. I literally have done consulting with clients where, the big thing in a lot of companies right now is what's called the D&I department, diversity and inclusion, a super important department. I'm one of their people, right? I'm an advocate for that kind of thing, but I'll tell them to their face, I'll say, the words D&I I mean, I is good, inclusion, but the word diversity works against you. And you know what? They never argue. They go, you're right. I mean, they get it. They can almost see people rolling their eyes when they say diversity. So that's why I say focus on either the words people not like you, or focus on new demographics, or something that's business, irrefutable business, that doesn't sound like a kumbaya thing. And
So what would you call it though, besides, because if you do have an Office of Diversity and Inclusion, would it just be an Office of Inclusion, or is it workplace?
The Ministry of Funny Walks? No.
I mean, no, you bring up a good question, and I'm going to, I'm on the fly here. I'm going to brainstorm on the fly. I might call it something like business betterment and inclusion, or employee betterment, or solution forward, or something, because the whole point of diversity is that we're better when we have diverse perspectives. And that is research clinically proven. I mean, companies that have diverse workforces think about business and business solutions in different ways. If you'll allow me just one quick example of that. I'm sure you know, and many of your listeners know, the Skinny Girl brand.
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Bethany Frankel.
So, exactly. Okay, so fun fact. You guys are all about the backstory on business. Bethany Frankel, when she came up with this idea of a low-calorie, good-tasting cocktail, she went and pitched it to every single liquor manufacturer in the country, every single major liquor one. And not to be sexist, but every one of those companies turned her down, and every one of those companies is headed by men. And again, not to be sexist, but just to put it out there, men don't typically have to count calories as much as women do. And so she went ahead on her own. She was turned down by every one of these companies. She went ahead on her own, found the funding for it, and 2 years later, Beam, as in Jim Beam, bought her company back from her for $100 million. So the company that turned her down initially, 2 years later, buys that company, that same idea and concept and brand back for $100 million. The same thing that probably would have cost them $500,000 to start with. And what I believe, and that's an example in my book, is that was a failure of perspective. If they had had a woman sitting around the table or on their board when Bethany was going in and pitching this, and maybe all these guys are like, I don't really think there's a market for that. I promise you, a woman would have said, excuse me, there is absolutely a market for this. Are you kidding? We would love this. And because it was all men, I chalk that up to a failure of perspective. And that's the kind of mistake that companies don't want to make. You might miss something big if you don't have that perspective. So I think the diversity and inclusion teams are incredibly important in companies, but that D word, I do find it, people have what I call diversity fatigue. They're just over it. Word.
You know, Kelly, I've been sitting here thinking about that example you gave of calling someone up on stage and pointing out things that are like, you're wearing a blue shirt, I'm wearing a red shirt, we're different. But what you actually end up doing with that exercise, which I think is fascinating, you're not saying it, but you're actually creating all the commonality that people have, right? Because the little differences you're pointing out, we're all like, of course someone's different. If you have a car, if you drive that car and I drive this car, they're different. But we both drive. I mean, that's the underlying thing you're getting at, is we're conducting business, we're doing this. I think it's a very wonderful point, and I'm glad you're making it in this book. And was this the hardest one for you? Well, we asked you this earlier, but...
Yeah, it really was, just because you don't want to say the wrong thing. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, it seems like it's clear to figure out how to market people. But when you're talking about giving advice to a person who may not be an executive, they might just be a worker in a cube somewhere, and I'm supposed to be giving them advice on how to work with the person down the hall who is maybe from another country or from another generation or whatever. And like, there's no good way to say this. And so when my editor gave me that direction of just stick to your true north and just keep it focused on business, that was when I had the clarity of like, that's really what it's all about anyway. Again, socially, you can do whatever you want. If you and I are having beers, we can talk about whatever we want to talk about. We can argue and debate and have spirited conversation. But in business, that may not be appropriate. We're just trying to move the business forward and solve problems. And so if you bring up something that I disagree with or I don't understand, all I've got to do and say in business is say, John, I see it differently. Or Tim, tell me what you mean by that, because I'm not looking at it the same way. And so we don't have to take sides. We can just talk about what it means from our standpoint of sitting in this meeting having a business problem to solve.
Well, Kelly, we want to thank Kelly. I know you've got to run your in between gigs, and it was awful nice for you to take time. And I know you're at a hotel room. Doesn't look like the Ritz,
I'm in my residence in
The corporate
in Dayton,
suites.
Ohio.
Yeah, Dayton, Ohio. And so Kelly's latest book, which is loaded with examples, and
There she goes.
what we love about Kelly's books is they're loaded with examples, and they're very readable, or what John says, digestible.
Digestible.
So they're great reads, and they're great for you to pick up. And if you have a small business, big business, any sort of entrepreneur, they'd be a great help to you. Her latest book just came out Monday, How to Work With and Lead People Not Like You, Practical Solutions for Today's Diverse Workplace. And Kelly, can you get them at the airports, or should we go to where good books are sold online?
I don't know if they're in the airports yet. They usually do that with the bestsellers, and I won't know if it's made the bestseller list for another 2 weeks, but fingers crossed. But you can definitely get it wherever books are sold, at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. Can I actually show one thing that I think is important?
Sure.
I want to show the spine of the book. I don't know if you can see how skinny it is. It's only 130 pages. It's like skinny. Well, no, it's important because, to Tim's point, I do all these speaking engagements, and when someone is like wanting a book, the first thing they do is pick it up and they look at the spine. And they're looking at it to see, am I really going to read this? How long? No, how long is it? Because,
Right.
I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day, and people don't read like they used to. They don't have the time. So I wrote this book to be super skinny. It's really skinny.
I'm calling that
John
book.
calls
That's a
them
new
digestible.
JFK to LAX.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is a 60 to 90 minute read, depending on how fast you read. Seriously,
That'll
it's
be a date
150
night.
That's
Dayton
flying to
Denver.
Chicago.
Dayton
Yeah.
to Denver. So listen, Kel. So thanks for joining us.
Thank
and
you, Kelly.
We'll see you again in the fall, and have a safe travels.
Thanks, guys, and
Travels.
thank you to the listeners. Thanks for always having me.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Kelly McDonald, she's such a good sport. I'm still mad about the skinny brand because all that was margarita with sweet and low.
Sweet and low. Yeah. Now, should we do?
Do you want to do deep discount? I think we should do. You want to do deep discount?
Okay. Yeah, guys, we're gonna do a little deep discount before we go to break. As everybody knows, if you don't know, you're gonna know now. Deep Discount is a partner of ours here on the Focus Group. And they've been a great partner. We love working with them. We have a lot of fun with their marketing team, and I'm not kidding. There are lots of fun conversations. This week, the special, and this is a fun one for me, is the under $10 and budget sale. So here's how I think you should look at this. I think you should go to the website, pick 3 titles, try to keep it at $20 to $22 with shipping. Make it movies you've not seen before, you've always wanted to see. Watch them and pass them on to
So
friends.
with shipping, you're saying 3, and you get them for $22.
I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you a focus group example of 3 titles you might want to look at. The first one, on Blu-ray no less, for $7.06. I don't know how they came up with a 6. $7.06.
706.
Not a penny more. $7.07. It's not going to move. I don't know how that works. But anyway, the first one is Postcards from the Edge, and it's based on the late actress Carrie Fisher's best-selling autobiographical novel about her relationship with her mother, Debbie Reynolds. The movie stars Shirley MacLaine and Meryl Streep as the Carrie Fisher character, and Shirley MacLaine plays the Debbie Reynolds character. Hilarious movie. I've loved. I could watch the movie anytime it's on. I think it's a lot of fun.
One of my favorite lines is when when the mother gets out of the hospital.
Yes.
Wasn't she in there? And the reporter goes up to her and says, "Now that you've got out of the hospital, what are you gonna do?" And she says, "Drink," or something like "Keep drinking," which was so matter of fact. I love that movie.
All right, it's good film, $7.06. The next one I recommend, and these are all at deep discount. Get to deep discount by going to focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the link there, because we get credit. We like getting credit for sending people to deep discount. The second movie is a comedy that stars a lot of talent, actually, and it came out, I'm going to say it was the mid-'90s. It's called The First Wives Club. And here again, the movie is $5.03. So you had 706 and 503. So far, we're cruising at like $11, right?
Midler was in that, right?
Bette Midler, Diane Keaton, Goldie Hawn, a young Sarah Jessica Parker.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she plays the romance of the Bette Midler's divorced husband. Lots of great actors, fun movie. It's a great comedy, I
Yeah,
think.
it's a good sit around. My favorite in that was the auction where they got the stuff for nothing. The auction scene was a lot of fun.
And the last one, another one Tim and I really love, is The Queen, starring Helen Mirren. And you could pick this up for $6.23. So if you're doing my math, I think we're up at like $17 and 30-some cents.
Your math is never good. It's a little more than that, but you're close.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11, 17,
18,
7, 5, and 6.
12.
No, 7 and 6 is 13.
Right.
And
6.
5 is, yeah.
That's 12 and 6. That's how much?
7 and 6 is 13.
7 and 6 is 13 and 5.
5 is
How much? It's 18.
It's 18 bucks.
You were
Okay.
around.
All right, we're getting close. Oh my
See,
God.
This is
help.
why if we go to a restaurant, don't let John tip because he leaves a buck on $20.
I have made terrible tipping mistakes.
Yeah, you make horrible tipping mistakes. I have to check
anyway,
it all the time.
The Queen stars Helen Mirren. It is another movie that I just think was pitch perfect. Did you like The Queen?
I did, and what I often wonder, and it's the same with the series that the Crown.
Oh, The Crown, yeah.
series. I wonder how
she watches it.
Is a lot of this insider. I wonder, because when you watch The Queen, which I love the movie, but I wonder a lot of those intimate moments where the issues are going
palace,
on.
yeah.
I was wondering if that stuff was really happening or not. There's something on Netflix right now about. Or not Netflix, one of the cable things with because Lady Di.
Yeah. Oh no, it's I know they're doing their tapes. They're releasing all the
right,
tapes.
and it was interesting about the boys' perspective of what was going on. But it shows a very detached family, and and the Prime Minister, of course, Tony Blair, trying to humanize them. But great film.
Good film. So now, look, we just spent we've done you the favor. You could spend 18. Well, don't go by my math, but it's under $20 before shipping. But that's what I say about this under 10 in budget sale. Pick 3 titles that you might not have seen, watch them, and pass them on to friends. It's cheaper than going to a movie.
Cheaper than going to a movie. And of course, they always have new releases, but this is not one that I would get.
Wait,
It's Alien: The Covenant. Not that I don't.
Hey
I would find
guys,
something else.
did either of you see Alien? Did any of you guys in the booth see Alien Covenant?
Nah, I haven't yet.
People we work with have.
Did they like it?
They were like so-so.
Yeah. I think this is one of these fan things. It's like the Fast and Furious and those sort of things. If you're into that, if you're into the whole shtick and genre, you're going to love it. But I don't particularly go for those sort of movies. But it's available now.
I wanted to see it. The build up to the movie was pretty amazing. They did a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and
Well, the effects and all this.
and I thought, Prometheus, the previous film, which kind of takes place in the alien universe, was not really what I was expecting. So people were hoping this would be more, and frankly, if you remember the first Alien, which I'm sure you saw, a lot of it, you never saw the creature. It was all psychological terror. You knew that, so.
But this reminds me of those sort of things. If you're a fan of a band, they might have an album where you're like, but you're still going to have it because you want the collection.
that's
So if
true.
you want the
That's
collection
true.
of all the Alien films,
And
it's now available. So be sure you.
And I want to do a shout out to one of our listeners in Florida, Rob, who sent me a picture of his first deep discount order. And I've shared the picture with with the deep discount crowd and with Tim. And he ordered 3 movies that I'm going to tell you what he ordered. He ordered Mrs. Doubtfire. Thumbs up. We give that a gold star, right? Remastered copy of Smokey and the Bandit. I would watch Smokey and the Bandit just to see the cars. Think about when that was made. The cars were like boats, like an Impala.
Burt Reynolds, right?
Burt Reynolds, exactly.
Jackie Gleason.
And then here's the movie that had me a bit curious because it comes up a lot on other people's lists, The Thomas Crown Affair, starring Pierce Brosnan. Now, I have never seen this movie.
Well, you wouldn't because it's realistic.
I don't think Pierce Brosnan playing a tuxedoed spy is realistic, but it comes up a lot, and so Rob, thank you for the picture. I'm curious about Thomas Crown Affair.
I have to watch it.
There you go.
So be sure to head over to focusgroupradio.com, click on the deep discount logo, and start clicking away and find some of these great bargains under $10. As John says, for under $20, you can pick up 3 of your favorites or 3 things that you'd like to see for under $20, which is great. So what do we always say, Garrett?
Thanks, deep discount.
So it's Tim Bennett here with John Nash. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to reset, and we're going to do a little bit of our banter, and then get into Caught My Eye and, of course, our business birthday. So thanks for joining us. We'll be right back.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the only address you need to find all about us, our platforms, including our partner, Deep Discount, as well as VW. A link is there as well. That was I think Tourist Satana could work in the White House. I don't try anything, I just do it. We need those big-titted go-go girls driving the sports cars around the...
Well, I'm still mad at Skinny Girl, because that one does bother me.
What do you mean?
When we talked with Kelly about the Skinny Girl, it's a simple thing, a diet
It bothers
margarita.
you that they didn't pick... that
It bothers me that you didn't come up with it. I mean, it's another
oh.
thing that you didn't come up with. Put sweet and low in your tequila, and you have an easy margarita, $100 million.
Sweet
and you and I are
low
sitting here at 35th Street.
in your tequila.
What does she do?
And you and I are sitting
Put
on
sweet
our...
and low and some tequila with lime juice and sells it for $100 million. So how tough was that?
Just so people know, I get these calls.
agree?
I
Does
get
everyone
these
agree?
calls all the time. Like Facebook was another one. Bennett gets on the phone. Nash, I can't believe he didn't come up with Facebook. People could sharing pictures and
Another one.
recipes.
When we were freshmen in college, you got the book with everyone's little pictures on it. All they did is digitize it. Why didn't you come up with it? You were way ahead of the
we
game.
never. No, I didn't
with
get
computers.
a picture book with.
You didn't. We had a picture
Oh,
book. Everyone's
no.
picture, and you went through, see where they're from, what's what, and then you decided I were going to stalk.
Who you're gonna
Called the baby book is what they call it.
maybe book?
Baby book.
Baby book.
So they had all the freshmen, and it went out every year to the whole college. So
That's why it's
it had
Facebook.
everybody's picture and where their hometown was and where they went to high school, and then you could see, you check it through who do you might want to run into, who do you want to meet.
Wow. No, we didn't see, and that's
Well,
why
your school was too big.
that's why I would never have come up with that idea because it didn't. We didn't have that.
But I think they had that at Harvard. That's how the whole
That's
idea
exactly
came
how
about,
it came about. Yeah, that's not a bad movie either. The Social Network. I doubt it. I doubt some of the stuff took place, but I loved the way they portrayed the Winklevoss twins in that movie because there was one actor who played both, and they were rowers. They were on the Olympic team, I think. Or
Didn't they walk away with $26 million or
They
something?
eventually got money, and now they're heavily invested in something called Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah. Well, I heard that's
That's-
kind of illegal. Is that true or no?
I don't know.
Don't they use that for buying drugs?
People
Bitcoin?
use it. It's a way of moving
Moving cash.
money around, but it's not cash like we think of. Bitcoin is something different. I don't know.
So we'd be remiss not to discuss, or a little bit anyway, even though we're not a political show. You and I were both in shock.
Ooh, boy. That was a press conference from Mars yesterday. In fact, let's not even say Mars. Let's go out to the outer planets. Because I can tell you from the way the administration officials were arranged around him that they had no idea this was going to happen. And then Chief of Staff John Kelly's standing there looking like, oh my God, what's going on? The body language told you all you need to know. He's looking at the floor and crossing his arms constantly.
The thing that scares me is I just can't predict where this is all going to go. I mean, we are 207 days or 210 days, whatever, into the presidency, and there's 3 more years left, and every day is raucous. And I just don't know I don't know how the whole thing is sustained. I mean, it monopolized yesterday's news coverage and talking heads and everything. I don't know.
Well, it left a lot of people speechless. Jake Tapper on CNN was wrapping up his show, I think, and he looked into the camera and he was like, there you go. Like he had nothing to say because what could you say? This was such a free-form, free-for-all. Now, when you ask the question of where does it go, and Tim and I are not going to play like we're on MSNBC or something. I don't have those credentials. Sometimes I wonder if they have the credentials to talk about this either. But
Too smart.
But it goes nowhere fast because the people that are the most supportive of Trump view his combative nature and the way he handled that press conference as rah, 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 you're attacking the fake media and the news. that 38%, you're not going to move them anywhere. The real question is, how craven are the Republicans? And I love that word. Someone yelled it at Jason Chavez when he was doing a town hall out in Utah. And she just said, you're craven, because for months and months and years, it was all about how corrupt Obama was and all the investigations. And the minute a Republican got in, it all evaporated. No more problems. We have a Republican in office. But they want things. They want well, they've wanted stuff from the start, right? And
all they got was a Supreme Court justice that Mitch McConnell stole.
so he stole by blocking Merrick Garland for, what, 9 months? Yeah. 9 or 10 months out of the president's last president's
11 months.
term. So what's so sick about all this is the calculus that they do to figure this out. Like, okay, what are the voters going to do? If I break with the president, will I be punished in a... I thought that honor and duty had some meaning. I guess it still does in the Marine Corps and then the Pentagon and the Navy and all the fine services, but in politics, it doesn't seem to be a word that even exists anymore, right?
Yeah, I'm just afraid that he is such a liar, and
Yeah.
he is a liar. And we had talked about this. Is it Mitchum? What's his name? Meacham?
John Meacham.
John Meacham said, as a republic will survive, he said, but the issue is the office of president. We always, regardless who's in power, you want to believe and you want to understand or believe what our president tells you. And we've been lied to openly. The video doesn't lie, right? So you see the video, and he's afraid that it becomes to the point where we just don't believe what the president says, and then you really diminish the institution, almost like they have in Italy, what they had with Berlusconi. The other thing I found that doesn't seem to be reported that much, certainly the protests in Charlottesville went after Jews, it went after people of color, African American. There was also a huge anti-LGBT chants about faggots and the such that's been underreported. But there's going to be a problem. And supposedly this weekend there's more protests to take place around the country. I don't know how it ends because the president obviously hasn't figured out how to be presidential. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's I'm flummoxed. Every week I think the ski slope can't be extended further down. We go down further. I'm like, wow, this is like a slalom run that's never going to end. It's
You almost wish sometimes we're like England or Canada and you can call a new election. Like Parliament, right? You call an election in 3 months. And move on. But I guess as most of the commentators said, this was a real easy one. This was a one that you could easily say, that is bad, this is good, we're moving on, Yeah. So.
All right, so back to the fun and games of the focus group after a moment of that actually occupied our whole day yesterday.
That was the Michelangelo Signorelli part of the show. Although we didn't have any crazies.
No one called you. So what caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
So I had a couple of quick ones. This one I read it and I just couldn't believe it. So the headline is Iowa man attempts to deposit $1 million bill into
there you go.
the bank. So this is in Sioux City, Iowa. He goes into the bank. There he is there.
Did he make the bill himself?
Dennis Strickland, 33 years old. He had $1 million bill and he went to deposit it on Thursday. And the teller, being as swift as she was, says she thought it was a little odd because he never had more than $500 in his account at any one time. So she wasn't concerned by the fact that we've never produced $1 million bill. She was just wondering where he got $1 million bill from because he only had about $500 in his account at any given time. So she sensed some sort of suspicion. And in fact, the largest denomination that we print is 100. It's a $100 bill. There was back in the 30s a $100,000 bill that was printed just.
I do remember that. I remember the history of that.
And that was done just for the Federal Reserve banks for transactions. But they said that the fake $100 bills, you buy them at stores or whatever, because they're so ridiculous, nobody would ever believe them. However, the teller, I'm sure if he had $1 million in the bank, she'd have put it in. But so they decide to call the police. So the police arrive, and they notice that Strickland is being fidgety, and he's in his pocket, and the cops ask him where he got the $1 million bill from. And he really couldn't say too much, and as he's fidgeting in his pocket, they said, "Do you have any more $1 million bills?" So he reached in to grab another one out, and a big bag of meth fell out.
This gets worse and worse and worse.
So they ended up arresting him for meth possession.
Not for the $1 million bill.
They let him go in the $1 million bill count and just arrested him for meth. So he's in jail right now. He's held on a $1,000 bond. And
I love this one, Tim. This is a good one.
So he was arrested and charged with possession of meth. Wasn't charged over the $1 million bill dispute.
But I gave you a 3.
I gave you a 3. And then the other one, this came from a listener, John in New Jersey, sent this. And actually I changed. I had a different one, and this came in last night. He said, have you seen this? And he said a friend of his loosely posted this on Facebook with a Ron. He said, I thought it was disgusting. So the headline is, Kearney School District removes 2 gay students' quotes from the yearbook. So this is in Kearney, Missouri, and the story just came out a couple days ago. And there were 2 students that had, every year the seniors put quotes in their yearbook. And these 2 kids were openly gay. They were both friends. And they had put their quotes in the yearbook. It says, Kearney High School graduates Joey Slavinsky and Thomas Swartz submitted their senior quotes before graduation, just like every other senior. But when the books came out, they found out that there was nothing under their names and the quotes were omitted. And it says both teens are openly gay, and they each chose quotes that they found funny. So Slavinsky's quote was, of course I dress well. I didn't spend all this time in the closet for nothing.
Of course I dress well.
And Swartz's was, if Harry Potter taught us anything, it's that no one should have to live in the closet. And so those were the 2 quotes that were
But they removed
missing.
the quotes.
So the school district deemed the quotes offensive. And they said that it could offend other students. So
But they were openly gay, which means they're fellow students.
they said they both love their town, they both love their school.
They apparently were not.
And they said they wanted to let it be known that they thought this was unfair. So the school system did write a response. And it said, in an effort to protect our students' quotes that could potentially offend other students or student groups, we ended up offending the very group
that you didn't want to
offend. And they said it's the school's practice to err on the side of caution. Doing so in this case had the unintentional consequence of offending the very students we were designed to protect, or the policy was designed to protect. We sincerely apologize to the students. We work diligently to help every student feel safe, supported, and included. We acknowledge our mistake, and we're going to use it as a learning opportunity to improve things in the future.
I don't think that's a bad response.
And then it went on for other things about diversity training and so forth. And the kids took it all in stride. And what the agreement was, the kids got stickers made, and they're going to hand them out to their friends and put them in the yearbook.
That could end up being funnier than had it been printed.
So they
now.
decided they're going to print up stickers and hand them out to their friends. So, but that was another one of those things. And I there was nothing offensive about those quotes, I didn't think. I don't know.
Of course, Of course, I dress well. I've lived in the closet.
Yeah.
I don't.
Those were the 2 things.
That's great. And so it was John from New Jersey who sent the.
Yeah, he's a listener. Came in. He said, "Hey Tim, did you see this?" And I said, "No, I didn't. I'm going to use it."
You do that via Facebook. I know you
hate Facebook.
Could I tell you 2 things about Facebook?
Since you didn't invent it, you don't like it, and since you didn't find it first, you don't like it.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, if you don't discover something first, you don't like it. What was the thing last week you talked about?
Oh, it wasn't. I didn't figure out the app, and I don't like the app. So no, that's the thing about Facebook is I have sat down and I've started to go through the feed, and then I look at my watch, and a half hour has gone by.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you honestly, I just feel like it's a sinkhole. Like you suddenly I'm into posts, and I'm remembering friends from high school, and I'm clicking on, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. So. It might be a form of like crack cocaine for me. I may not be able to handle Facebook.
I remember what it was now. It was the show about Scientology, Remini.
Yeah, Lee Remini.
Right. You just discovered it as it's been on for 8 seasons.
That's like me the day I
Famous
discovered.
Coldplay.
That's just what I just said to my assistant back when I owned my agency. I heard a great new band. Have you ever heard of Coldplay? And they literally won the Grammy.
Yeah, they won
the
12
night
Grammys
before.
last night, John.
And she just looks at me, and she's Gen X, right? She looks at me, and she just walks out with her pad like, I'm going to deal with you later, okay? By the way, Robin, my old assistant, I used to watch her doing AOL Instant Manager, and she was texting, and she's working on the keyboard. And one day I had a glass wall in my office. I thought one day I don't know, she's not working. So I call her in and I said, Robin, we need to go over the Subaru budget and I want to reallocate X amount of dollars for out of home in Chicago and San Francisco. And I need to know by like an hour and a half from now, okay. And I'm sitting there watching. She's still doing her. She marched in ahead of time with a new spreadsheet with everything correct. I'm like, and I laughed and I said, I don't know what you're doing over there. And she goes, look, our generation multitasks.
It's full of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's tough to try to do that. You can't pay. You're not good at multitasking.
No.
I can tell when I'm on the phone with you and there's silence. You're reading something. He said, "Oh, I got an email." So what quote you're on?
Tim got me again. Mine's very different. It's more of a science thing, and I'm kind of fascinated by this. So the headline reads, "The Radical Plan to Cool Down Los Angeles as the World Heats Up." Interesting little stat here. It's barely 10 a.m. on an August day in Hollywood, and the heat is already becoming oppressive. Now, you know how the summer can be in L.A. The temperature is only in the mid-80s, but in the direct sun, it feels hotter, and it's getting worse. On a day like that in Los Angeles, if they took a surface reading on the asphalt, the roads, 112 degrees. By midday, it'll rise to 150 degrees at asphalt level because it's absorbing all the sun. So what Los Angeles is doing is a pilot project, and they're putting this sealant down. It's called the Cool Pavement Movement. And unlike other street sealants, this one has been specifically formulated with a light-colored pigment, and within 20 minutes, the crew has effectively turned the street from black to white, and by the time they finished putting that down, the ambient temperature at the road level had dropped 15 degrees. So they're doing this pilot project in a number of different areas of Los Angeles, and there's something.
Is it reflective or is it just white?
It's white, so it does reflect the sun up. It's a special kind of white, though it's not blindingly white. They're doing it in Beverly Hills and a few other neighborhoods.
It's gonna get dirty.
Well, that's you nailed it. That's one of the things they're trying to work on is with the manufacturer on the formulation of this sealant is how can we make it rugged and durable and so they put it down once and it's down there for years. So apparently Los Angeles a few years ago also began an initiative where if you were replacing a roof or building a new building, the surface of the roof had to be reflective. It had to be silver or some material that reflected the light back because all this other stuff is heat absorbing and it just adds to this thing called the heat dome, or they have a name in it.
Well, the smog, right? And that heat.
Well, urban areas have this problem where the temperature is different in an urban area than even just like 6 blocks in one direction or 5 in another. So the goal here is to figure out a way to handle what was the number here? 28,000. Get this. All right, so I just said it, but 28,000 lane miles of roads. The Los Angeles County area encompasses 28,000 miles of paved roads.
20,000 of them are for car commercials.
Yeah, actually, a lot are shot out. I recognize them all.
If you watch a car commercial, 99% of them are all the same shot.
Uh-huh.
Just look at the background. There's that bridge with the lights on it. Everybody uses them.
So the pilot project is hopefully going to be expanded, and the goal would be to drop this whole effort of reflective roofs and reflective pavement is meant to drop the ambient temperature in Los Angeles by about 15 to 20 degrees on any given hot day. But they think that's going to be not enough thanks to global warming and climate change. The temperature on a typical Los Angeles day might be in the 90s. In in another decade, it's going to be in the hundreds.
See, I was under the impression, having spent 2-3 weeks at a time out there, in the early 2000s, whatever, that it was pretty temperate in LA. So
their summers are getting hotter.
Really?
Yeah, their summers are getting definitely
quick,
hotter.
Huh?
Yeah.
Now, I know inland in Los Angeles, it's hot. It's obviously hotter than it is in Santa Monica or really down
and
to
that's
San
what they talk
Diego.
about. There's zones of the city where are much cooler than, and you're right about this, because Hollywood would be one thing, but if you're down by Santa Monica and the whole coastal thing, you're getting the breeze and stuff.
Yeah, that's...
I thought it was, and then they finish the article by saying that the city is also having people plant more trees, because trees are like natural air conditioners. And then the author just said, of course, that's as good as it's going to get until the next drought. Yeah, you can plant all the trees you want, but if they have another huge multi-year drought, then you're dealing with another.
Although you were there, you and I were there
Oh,
for
Tim.
IGLTA for
2 years ago.
Drought,
They
drought,
had-
drought, drought, drought. How many fountains and
We
waterfalls?
walk by water feature after water feature.
Water all over the
And we're
place.
the only ones on the street, by the way. We're walking, but we're the
You
only
want to get a
ones
glass
walking.
of water at a restaurant.
You had to
And,
ask.
due to the water shortage, and meanwhile, there's fountains outside, water running on the streets, and John and I can't get a glass of water at a restaurant in LA due to the drought.
All right,
What was that all about?
That's LA. That I love LA. You and I had a fun time out there, but we were mystified by the fact that people would get in a car and drive a block. We've always seen this, right? It drives me crazy. And Tim, you literally pointed out 6 water features in a 3-block walk. You're like, what the? And it's like a
Should all be
waterfall.
shut off.
Yeah.
Well, it's Los Angeles. So our business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
John, you're an animator.
Yeah.
You know who Otto James Mesmer is? Did you look? And if you looked ahead,
Oh, I knew who it was. I did look ahead, but I knew who it was. That's Felix the Cat, right? He's also famous for other things, but that's his big. He was a
did
cartoon.
you look ahead?
Yes.
Or did you know who it was if I just said?
I knew who it was. Who, if you said it, if
Okay.
you said Tex Avery or you know.
I don't want to know any of the names.
Okay. I don't want to know any of your animation names.
So he was born today in 1892. He's 91 years old. American animator, best known for his work on Felix the Cat.
Do you remember the Felix the Cat at all?
I love Felix the Cat.
You did? Okay.
What else did he work on? Do you know?
No, Felix is the one I know him for.
So he's also famous. He also is credited with another very famous cartoon at the time, Popeye.
No way. He's Popeye?
Yeah, he did animation work for Paramount Studios on several Popeye cartoons, which carry his credit. But he was interested in cartooning and animating since he was a little kid, and he created his own comics for a local newspaper in 1912 called Fun.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Right, it ran in the New York World, and then he worked for a couple of studios, ended up getting drafted in World War I, and he came back and teamed up with this guy named Pat Sullivan, and he had an animation studio, and he gave him this project to work on that was supposed to be called Feline Follies, which starred a cat called Master Tom, which
I'm glad it evolved to Felix.
was a black cat, which was the prototype for Felix, which brought good luck to people. But what ended up happening is Sullivan ended up taking all the credit for it because it was his studio. So for years, all of the Felix stuff was accredited to Pat Sullivan rather than Mesmer, even though all the employees knew, the animators knew that it really was Mesmer. And they said there was an ongoing dispute, particularly because Sullivan laid claim to the character, and it wasn't until after Sullivan died that Mesmer received any credit at all for Felix. They said also that Felix was the very first cartoon created and developed for the screen, as well as the first to become a licensed and massed merchandise character. I would have thought that had been Mickey Mouse.
Ditto. Yeah, that's an interesting factoid that they beat the mouse to that one, right?
And then they said that then the cartoon had a resurgence in the 30s after popularity of comic strips was dying. Then they put them into comic books in the 40s. I was never a big comic book kid, were you?
Yeah, no. And I say yeah, no because I like specific ones. Like I like Richie Rich, Superman. I think that there's
Blondie.
Oh, Archie. Yeah.
Archie.
Jughead, the whole crowd.
What was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Favorite cartoon as a kid? I loved the Jetsons. And see, the thing about when you say favorite cartoon, everything that's famous was a rerun by the time we were kids, right? Jetsons, Yogi Bear, all that stuff was Hanna-Barbera. Some of it was newer, but I could always watch a Bugs Bunny spot. And any spot that involved Yosemite Sam, another one. And how about the, whoa, boy, I say whoa! Yukon.
Not Yukon Cornelius.
When I say whoa,
Foghorn Leghorn.
When I say whoa, I mean whoa. Yeah.
My favorite one, which I didn't realize was a Japanese cartoon, it was dubbed, was Speed Racer.
Oh, Speed Racer. It was totally
love
dubbed.
Speed Racer. I
Speed
love
Racer's
the
a good
outfits.
show.
I love the cars. I love the whole thing. So Felix starred in over 150 cartoons. And then they began converting the animation into sound films. And then he went and worked on Popeye, as I said. And he also did a lot of the work here in Manhattan and Times Square on developing the electronic billboards, all those different billboards that are in Times Square.
And they used to all, back in the day, used to be all lights, and like actual analog, not digital.
And then he went, worked with a guy from Casper the Friendly Ghost, and that's how they were able to continue doing some of the Felix the Cat work and the cartoons until he died in Teaneck, New Jersey in 1983. Died of a heart attack at 91. Felix is still in syndication over 250 newspapers
91.
all over the world.
Not a bad, I hope he was in good health all the way up to...
At 91?
I hope so.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a long time to live.
If you said that to a 20-year-old, they'd be like, what, are you crazy? I want to live to 100. And then you say that to a...
My father says he's going to live to 100. He's convinced he's living to 100.
100, really?
I hope he does, but he's convinced. I mean, he's very serious about it.
Every time we see Bob's mom, she's like, I'm out at 90.
Decided that.
She's decided that she's out at 90. And I'll tell you...
Did you want to know what age you were going to die at?
Well, according to the actuarial tables, I do know.
So how do they do that?
That's your height, your weight, your general health, whatever. I'm slated to be a 90-year-old.
90 or older?
90. Cutoff is 90.
How old are you now? 50, 60, 60?
100.
Oh, well, another 10, 15 years. But 90 is tough because if you think, and that's one of the big issues going on now from a business point of view, right? From healthcare. And I know we're going to have somebody on later
Next
in
week,
the year
yeah,
to talk about the aging, particularly aging LGBT population is, if you retire at 62, 65, 68, and you lived another 30, 40 years, which with medicine, it's possible.
Could happen.
You outlive your money. And how quick do you outlive your money? And then what happens?
I don't know. That's a huge problem. And then last time I met with my financial planner, that's when I got the 90, by the way.
Oh, he came up with that number?
He goes, we have you slated at 90. I'm like, really? Oh, thank you. Did you talk to my doctor about that? But as a lot of us have seen this past year, a lot of people have passed away, and I've been shocked by the ages. 54, 72, and you say, just like what you said, imagine stopping, you decide to step back from a full-time gig in your late 60s, and imagine only getting 2 or 3 more years, and then suddenly something terrible happens. And that's the thing a good friend of yours, one of your fraternity brothers, taught us years ago. The house always wins. And we have no control over this. We think we do, but we have no control.
Particularly from healthcare, which is and that's obviously a big debate going on now in terms of our healthcare system overall as a country. But one of the big issues is they talk about 10, 20 years from now, if things are as they are, somebody like us, what we would be paying for a healthcare premium. And
sky high.
I don't know anybody, quite frankly, in their retirement that could pay the amounts they're talking about.
Back to your business birthday with Otto Mesmer.
Yes.
One of the things I hear over and over from my mentors during the course of this animation thing, and I've heard it from a lot of people, is a lot of work. It's an art form. It's hard. It's difficult. But everybody says it's one of the rare jobs where you laugh every day. And that's got to contribute to the 90 years old. You laugh every day.
Do you laugh every day?
I laugh I get off the phone with you, I'm laughing. So it's usually something
talking about
coming,
looking at the bank account.
There's something coming from Bennett every day. It's like, have you heard this? Da, 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 da.
Well,
by the way, as you know us, if you've been a long-time listener, one of the joys we each take is cracking each other up, and we still can do it. It's so easy to go down that road where we're practically crying.
Well, 90% of it can't come on the air.
Well, do we have a break and then a shop talk, right?
Oh, okay, yeah. Hey, it's I forgot about Shop Talk. I was ready to go say goodbye. Hey, it's Tim Bennett here with John Nash. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a Shop Talk from one of our former guests, actually, Tim Gunn.
Quick one.
So stay with us.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Now back to the Focus Group with Tim and John.
Because he has a lot of chutzpah.
An entertaining look at the world of business.
Heads are spinning, heads are spinning.
Listen, laugh, and learn.
I am not gay. I never have been gay.
That's perverse.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with my good friend and co-host Tim Bennett. We're going to do a really quick shop talk.
Tim was ready to close down.
Tim was shutting up shop, and he's like, "Wait!" And we're like, "Wait a minute." You know, we've got thrown. We threw the guys off in the booth. We're all
I was thrown off
because we start out with Kelly. We diced things up a bit.
I stretched that business birthday to its last breath. I'm looking at the clock, and then I'm thinking, "Oh my God!"
Jared and John and Allie are laughing. You did stretch that one.
Like, oh, okay, let's get the time in.
And I'm wondering, I think, when's he going to go to break and do shop talk?
So thanks for reminding me.
Tim Gunn was recently interviewed. Tim Gunn was recently on Jimmy Fallon, and he was promoting the new season of Project Runway, season 16.
Wow.
16 years.
I've not watched the latest season.
They're still good. You know what I love about it? You can drop in.
Is Nina Garcia still involved?
I don't know. The first show that aired was the Road to the Runway, where they introduced the guests and stuff. So that I haven't seen the judges yet. But Tim Gunn was asked on Tonight Show, where he was talking to Jimmy Fallon, and he was asked, how can Jimmy improve himself? And Gunn's reply was the following. He said, "I love your suits. I love the fit of them. You are classically handsome. You have a great physique. You are the funniest person I know. I want you to have fun with your accessories, like your tie. Try more colors. Really play it up. I'd love you to try a pocket square." So what Tim Gunn actually did there was something that Tim and I've learned it the hard way. Tim, I think, has learned this earlier and invoked this in his corporate career. It's called the magic 5-to-1 ratio. And psychologists and sports coaches believe the best way to offer constructive feedback to an employee or an athlete is to give 5 positive pieces of information which make you more receptive to hearing the corrective one. You can go as low as 3-to-1, I think.
Which they say a lot of times happens in sports.
And for good premier athletes, it's 3-to-1. And this coincides. Years ago, I had a trainer. I was working out one day, and he said they're taught to never give more than 3 directions at a time, as you can't process it. So do you invoke the 5-to-1 ratio?
I do, and I had a funny story about this because Brian from AdMark 360, as you know, is a fan of our show and does our socks and part of the Focus Group family. He and I, before I hurt my knee, used to row semi-competitively in a master's program. And Brian called me up one day and said, "Hey, Tim, I got us in a race on Saturday, and it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be easy. We're going to go out there. We're going to row. We're going to win this thing. It's going to be hands down. It's going to be fun." I said, "Okay, great." So I didn't pay attention, but right in Philadelphia, also going on were the Olympic trials.
Oh, my God.
So
Rowing trials
okay. For the Olympics. So everyone who did not make the Olympic team by like a 16th of a second
was going to race you
now
guys
in this race. So we line up, and I'm thinking we're going to be, rowing against the Lackawanna Lake, rowers or something, and we're just going to have a nice row. So Brian and I get out there, and it's like Princeton Training Center, San Diego Training Center, U.S. team, and these athletes, 6'8", these guys were monsters, muscles, the whole deal. Brian and I are sitting there. We get our asses kicked. And I was so mad, and we finish up, and our coach is there at the end of the dock.
What did he say?
He says, "Hey, boys." He goes, "Quite a day, isn't it?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "It's a beautiful day. You got out and you had some exercise, and we'll row again next week." and
that's the 3-0. You just got 3 good things and nothing.
We'll row again next week. And I just remember, we actually laughed because it was everyone who lost the Olympic trials were
by a 16th of a second, right?
And, they were yards and hundreds of yards ahead of us. It was
you know my friend Adrian, right?
Yep.
Adrian and I had drinks last week, and I brought up this critique concept, and he just held up his hand. He goes, "That's a compliment sandwich." I said, "What?" And anybody who knows the cartoon Family Guy, which I did not know this, so he's sitting, he taps his phone, he goes, "It's a compliment sandwich." He goes,
"I never heard of that."
I guess the baby Stewie gives the dog on Family Guy a review of some sort, and he serves it up. His analogy is the bun, the 2 halves of the bun are the nice part, and the middle is the problem, and that's the compliment sandwich. And I was stunned. I said, "Adrian, you know all about?" "Yeah, I learned all about that on Family Guy. We laugh our asses off about that." Do you guys know about that one, the Family Guy thing?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was a thing before Family Guy, though.
The compliment sandwich?
Yeah.
So they made it part of the cartoon, but it was already something that, okay.
Yeah.
Because you guys started laughing right away, like the compliments.
It's a funny concept.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that there's science behind it.
Yeah, no, and they say that the positive reinforcement, and then, as you said, you're willing to accept the correction. Somebody asked us one time, we were lucky at SiriusXM, we were able to tap into some of the talent pool, although we got Tim Gunn on our own.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Which was a problem for the SiriusXM people because he didn't go on any of those shows. But
That's Tim, because he didn't go on any of those shows. He ranges the
remember
mug.
we tried to get the Pet Shop Boys, they said yes, and Sirius cut us out.
Yep.
Bastards. But the funny thing about Tim Gunn, and John and I have said this to this day, he was the most prepared, probably one of the most famous guests. I mean, we had Jesse Ventura and a number of other, Ron Reagan, but Tim Gunn came in, he had done his homework, he knew who we were.
Yep.
He had books signed to us, he was dressed his part and just like he would wear on the show. He came to play. I mean, he was. And I think to myself, boy, of all the guests we ever had, because we had people on that were prima donnas that had no reason to be.
Yeah.
And he could have been, and he was the most professional and buttoned up. Would you agree? Or
Tim is my favorite by far, Tim Gunn. And a friend of ours, Pat, who listens to the show, Pat says that's one of the favorite interviews of his. And he said because he saw in Tim Gunn and us kindred spirits of a mentor, of someone who's had a whole career, and just the fact that he was so willing to have fun with us, because he ran Tim's list.
He did Tim's list, right.
And I thought his reaction to the callers was hysterical, because he's reading the list, not on, and he was great, and totally a random thing that happened that got him on the show, and it was a lot of fun. He lives in my neighborhood, by the way, and I've seen him on the subway once or twice, and once my Metro card didn't work, and he goes, "Let me give you a swipe." And this was before he was leaving Liz Claiborne,
right?
Because he had all these TV shows. He had an ABC show, and we had a hilarious subway ride down to Times Square, and he was...
Was this after he was on the show? Mm-hmm. Did he remember you?
He remembered me, and he was very forthcoming, and he talked about his commitments to Project Runway and how he feels like he had to leave, or he had to let Liz Claiborne know that the time allotment he was giving this new career might not coincide with what he truly had to give all those brands. But what a super cool guy.
Yeah, and I
accessible,
often,
friendly.
I thought about him, and Ron Reagan was another person.
We woke him up, and he did a great interview.
Somebody didn't tell him he was supposed to do the interview. He wasn't a prima donna about it, because we did have book authors that would say, "No, I'm having brunch. Nobody."
Can't you hear me? I'm chewing cereal.
Her little shitty book. So,
your little shitty book,
right?
See, I laugh every day with Tim Bennett.
The book? I don't even remember what it was. We threw it right in the garbage on air. Too bad we didn't have video then. But
and they were never invited back.
No, but Ron Reagan, they all came to play. They all had stories. They were all buttoned up, and boy, were they were fun interviews. That would be a fun clip to put together. Would be Gunn, Ventura.
I would also say Jennifer Granholm.
Jennifer Granholm was great
because she had done I think she had done 6 to 8 interviews prior to us. Yeah. And you had read her book. You had all these questions. It was a great interview.
And her husband, right?
Of course, when the mics were off, I was the one that kind of. Well, I asked questions about their daughters or something.
It's inappropriate. John was inappropriate.
Well, they laughed. They were relaxed. But on the way to the elevator, after I had that little faux pas of something about the daughters. And the boyfriends. I think it was something along those lines.
You asked them about whether they were having sex or not.
I think that might...
In front of the father, the teenage girls, John's like, where they go. How many bases do they go to?
The faces were like...
I'm sitting there like, you got to be kidding me.
But they laughed, and then she basically said, guys, I'm not shitting you. This was the best interview I've had all day. And it was you guys were the most prepared, and it was the most fun. And it was always gratifying from people like Tim Gunn down to Jennifer Granholm to hear someone say that.
Considering she went on to Chris, what's his name? She had just left Hardball.
Chris Matthews.
Taping a Hardball. Well, we were most prepared because we read the book. We used to read all the books, and then we realized...
No one reads the books.
No one reads the books.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came in the blazer.
And all done up.
That was the old Outkey studio.
Your hair's long there, too.
Thank God I've gone bald, almost
red
bald,
I am.
Right?
Anyway, it's the focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Thanks for joining us today. We want to thank our partner here, Deep Discount. Be sure to head over to focusgroupradio.com and click on the deep discount logo. Find yourself some concert T-shirts there too. That's my newest
I
obsession.
keep forgetting it's books. It's
everything.
Tons of stuff there.
And right now they've got the under $10 sale going on. Also, a special thanks to our partner here, Volkswagen of America. If you're in the market for a new car, check out all the great new SUVs that Volkswagen currently has. They've got some great deals going on in the new Tiguan, which is now the largest SUV in its class, compact SUV. They're still selling the little one, too, as the Tiguan Legacy.
Legacy, yeah.
And the new Atlas. And John and I will be doing a road trip later on this fall, and then also we'll be doing a live show from the Out and Equal conference with our partners Volkswagen in October, so stay tuned for that. Everybody remember, arrive alive, don't text and drive. Or don't text and drive, arrive alive.
There it is. Yeah.
See you next week.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Formerly on Sirius XM satellite radio and now accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.